Barron Ridge Speakers Agency proudly presents Speaker Spotlight, highlighting one of our keynote speakers from across the nation. Now, here's your Spotlight host, Mindy East.
Hi, good afternoon. My special guest today is Sierra Scott, who is our current reigning Ms. America Elite 2019. Sierra comes to us with a long background of pageant history. She was Ms. United States in 2017. In 2018, you were Ms. Queen of Queens International. And you're the host of Positively Kansas and one of my favorite speakers. So,
well, thank you. Thank you, Mindy. That means a lot. You've got some really good speakers, so that makes me happy.
Well, thank you. It's always fun to work with you, and you and I are personal friends. And
yes.
And, you know, your accomplishments, your talent, your abilities, your contribution are exceeded only by my own envy.
You are so sweet. You're just making my day. I'm going to wait, I already have hired you to be that PR person.
You're always so happy and positive. In fact, as the host of Positively Kansas, I think you have a permanent case of positivity.
Yes.
How are you staying happy, healthy, and positive during this COVID-19 crisis?
You know, Mindy, I think happiness is a choice. It's been a choice that I make every single day when I wake up. And I think especially this circumstance, has forced us to go a little deeper, maybe to find happiness and meaning in life. But the first thing I do every morning is I listen to a Positive Mental Attitude CD while I'm getting ready. I listen to Positive Mental Attitude CDs as I'm driving around during the day. I come home before I go to bed, I write in my gratitude journal 3 things that happened that day. And you're going to laugh about the one today is a quick trip tea. I haven't had one for a while. I had one today. I'm so excited. You know, it's the little things that make a difference. And so I think realizing that we have so much to be grateful for, and this is forcing us to take a look at those things that we're grateful for. And I think before I go to sleep too, I read a positive book because I want positive thoughts to be in my mind the last thing before I go to sleep. So I think it's all about what you choose to see and do.
Oh, I agree. And so I've been managing the speaking side of your career for the past 3 years.
And thank you for that. You've gotten me some great speaking engagements, and I've gone such cool places. I love it.
Thank you. Well, and also, I also book your personal appearances. So from Anchorage, Alaska, Good Morning Anchorage, to Wake Up Jacksonville, you know, I have gotten you on all these places.
I've been everywhere.
I'm not
It's been wonderful.
Back, but I'm saying one of the biggest components of your crown is the community service to others factor. And with everything shut down, we canceled so many of your appearances. I mean, every appearance of yours had to be canceled. Some were rescheduled. But how are you managing that disappointment?
Well, you know, it's so funny because I kind of turned it around. Again, that goes back to the choosing happiness. I think in this time, we've been given a wonderful gift. And that gift is we're able to figure out ways around, to use our creativity, to use our thoughts, and you're trying to find a different way to do things. And so one of the things that I did, because going back to, I do a TV show called Positively Kansas. Prior to that, I started my own television show that was called It's All Good. So I've always had a very big dedication to positive news. So what I did is I decided, well, I can't make these appearances. I think you had 3 or 4 per week for the last 3 or 4 weeks that have been canceled. So what I thought is to reach out to people. I would do a nightly Facebook Live, and I have asked people to send in the most positive ideas that they have. Find me people who are going beyond the call of duty. People have found new ways to do things. People that are finding ways to encourage others. So each night at 7 p.m., I do a Facebook Live. The newscast lasts about 15 minutes. And we've talked to people from Panama, from Houston, from Miami. I mean, we're getting incredible story ideas. And traditional news, which I did for 25 years. I was an anchor for 25 years in main anchor in traditional news. You never get to do those stories. And so I'm having so much fun now telling people what's great about this experience.
Very good. Well, and as you mentioned, you are more than just a pretty face. You have a
Thank you.
background in journalism. You're an Emmy award-winning journalist, broadcast journalist. You did a documentary on Darfur that was showcased at the United Nations and the Toronto Film Festival. So during this time of crazy news, fake news, being overwhelmed with so much information, what can you share as far as your thoughts moving forward?
I think the biggest thing, and I give a lot of speeches about this very topic, and I started that years ago because, again, I worked in traditional newscasts, and I would come in with these positive story ideas, and they would always get turned down. My news directors would say, nobody wants to hear positive news. People would say, oh, that story's too fluffy. And I really disagree with that. I think people need that more than ever, especially now. But I think even without COVID-19, people needed that. But to go back to your question, I think you have to watch news with a grain of salt. I know a lot of people are glued to their TVs right now. They've got their TV on 24 hours a day in the background. And I think, honestly, that's probably the worst thing you can do, because you're hearing this over and over. You're starting to think that it's all bad, and it's not. Yes, there are people dying. I don't want to downplay that. And I have a huge sympathy for any death. I don't want any deaths to occur. But I also think that people are scaring themselves unnecessarily. You know, the news makes money by keeping you watching. And so they have a reason to keep you watching. And so, again, when you watch and you decide to, just take it with a grain of salt that there are really good things happening too. And I think the best advice I can give you is watch a half an hour of it and go down, fill your mind with something positive, because that's what's going to get you through anything, any bad situation.
There you go. Well, you're also a business speaker. So what type of advice would you say to that company or business out there that is having to work with the media, and how do they get positive media attention?
Well, what's interesting is I worked in traditional news till about 2001, and that's when I broke off and started It's All Good. And in order to do that, I had to create my own business. I own my own production company, It's All Good Productions. Great name, huh? But you can tell I've always been based in positivity. But my advice to someone is, and I have a million ways, and I can come speak to your organization about those specific ways to get positive attention, because usually the media only shows up, and I'll go back to the Tylenol scare years ago. If something horrible happens to your company, the news media will be there in a second. And it's a lot more difficult to get them to cover something when you're doing something wonderful. So again, that's kind of why I based my whole show, It's All Good, on featuring companies and organizations and people that were doing something great, because that's not traditionally what happens. But the advice I would give to somebody, just overall, is to find a niche that makes you so unique and so unusual. And I don't care if your company maybe gives back 10% of your profits, or if your company does something within the community or partners with somebody positive, you can turn that around to get yourself media coverage. But again, I have lots of ways to do that, and I'm happy to share those in much longer format.
Sure. Well, I so appreciate that, because some people just are clueless when it comes to how to respond, how to react.
Absolutely.
And, some people don't understand the positive angle. I like the fact that you're always moving forward with a positive intention. And I know that that's just your second nature. So I just think that's amazing. You also are trained in crisis management to a certain degree, and you had to have that component within your skill set when you were doing news. So can you share a little bit about how that would benefit a company or a conference audience?
The bad thing is people usually do not prepare for the negative, and that's not necessarily, uh, I understand why they don't. They're opening up at a company, they're thinking everything's going to be great, they plan for the future, and monetarily they take that into consideration. But a lot of times they don't take into consideration what if. What if somebody comes and robs your building? What if there's a shooting in your building by an employee? What if, I mean, you can go down the line of what ifs. And what I found, I worked for a television station in Tampa, Florida for a number of years. We had a notebook this thick. And what was interesting, just from a media standpoint, that we were prepared for any kind of travesty that might come along, any crisis. So being in Tampa, hurricanes were number one, of course. Mm-hmm. But what we did in that notebook, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic, we had a succession plan. Number one, who is the number one person if something goes wrong? Who's the point person? And if they're not around and not reachable, who's the second in line? Who's the third in line? They actually went 10 deep, which was great. Because you never know. Maybe the hurricane knocks out power. You can't get a cell phone call to the first person on the list. Then within the book, it explained what everybody's job would be. In other words, we had a reporter that, okay, you're going to be the one that goes and talks to the highway people and decide, are roads torn up? If they are, what do people do? You're going to go speak to the people that are restoring electricity. So we had a plan in place, which would be applicable to a company. Should something go wrong in a company, let's say it burns down at 3 a.m. Okay, the press is going to call, they're going to cover this story. Who's going to be the one that is the person that they speak to? Who's going to be the one that talks about, are we rebuilding? Are we not rebuilding? What are we going to do? What's the game plan? Because they're going to ask that. And you need to have that in place. So that's a really important component. And I can go into companies, again, when we have a longer format, sure. I can tell you what you need to have in that plan and how to deal with the media, how to speak to the media, who speaks to the media. I can help train you and put a camera on you, and we can actually sit down and I will fire questions at you and help you learn how to come across calm, how to have the answers that make you look, even if you don't have all the answers, that make you look like you're in control.
Oh, I should have had that little brush up course with you before today.
Oh no, you are so natural. I don't need to teach you anything.
Please don't stop. One of the topics, one of your more popular topics that is in your skill set is beating the bully, which, we haven't, that's always top of mind presence because of, it's just a real thing, especially with social media. But, unfortunately, we haven't had a school shooting for a while, but most of those stem from someone feeling bullied. But bullying also can transcend into a business situation.
Oh, yeah.
The workplace. And you've had experience with that as well.
Well, I've had experience with it, and I can tell you how a company can have experience with it. It's interesting because I thought once I got out of high school, bullying was going to be over. Everybody's going to act like an adult. We'd all be happy and get along. And it's just not the case, sadly. Being on television while it was a wonderful career and I got to do things that the average person never gets to do, on the flip side of that, I was also held up for public scrutiny. At the end of a newscast, people would write in and say they hated the dress I had on, or my hair looked awful, or whatever I was talking about, I was stupid, I didn't know what I was talking about. I was a victim of it, and am to this very day, by the way. I put my opinion out on COVID-19, and I was attacked by another member of the press and bullied by her, saying that I am a disgrace to journalism. And to me, that's protected by the Constitution, freedom of speech. But it's interesting that I think has devolved because of social media. We can say whatever we want and mean things. And I think that's especially true for companies, because the problem is you can be a great company. You can run so well and be so great to your customers, but one customer walks in and has a bad experience, or it could be a competitor that wants to put something bad out about you, and they can do that. And so companies can be bullied as well. And so again, with my experience in the press, 30 years total now, I can help set up some of your responses and how you respond and what's the best way to do that. And, you know, I can help companies deal with that too, because again, it's crazy. People, I think, feel, I call them, you know, keyboard cowards. They feel like they can say what they want, but they would never say that to your face. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it's a reality that business leaders have to face.
Well, especially when someone puts so much time and attention into building their brand, mm-hmm. and relies on public approval or customer yes. experience. So that's a great offering to have as far as coming to a conference or event. So you mm-hmm. also do a lot of emceeing. And
yes, thanks to you, yes.
Yeah, but also, you know, I am so fortunate I get to tag along and see you in action. And recently, you were just pulled into service to do a impromptu auction, live auction.
Uh-huh.
And I
which I'd never done before.
You know, she was an auctioneer. Not that you are, but you did such a nice job. You always think well, you think quickly, you land on your feet. You're always the consummate professional. If anyone would like to book Sierra for their conference or event, we know you're not booking anything right now, but Sierra is available for a Zoom conference, a webinar, and as those openings start to free up in the fall and winter, and you'd like to have her on your stage, please reach out to me and I can make that happen for you. Sierra, even though we're all in this together, we each learn something differently. So in closing, what would you say your silver lining experience has been throughout all this?
I think there have been 2 and maybe 3, but the probably most important one is the small things really matter. It's little things that we appreciate, our family, things that we took for granted, sitting down for a meal sometimes. You know, life got so busy that we didn't do that anymore. So I think appreciating those around me has been number 1. Number 2, I think, has been, I realized I don't have to be busy all the time. I was kind of a hamster on a wheel, and I was constantly doing this, going there, you know, worried about if I sat home at night, I would go, wait, I could be doing something to help other people. I felt guilty for sitting home alone. So I think I'm learning that busy isn't necessarily equal to doing something great. And I think the third thing that I take away from it is we really have a choice about if we're happy or not. And again, I dug down deep and really focused on myself, what made me happy. And it forced me, which I love, and this has forced a lot of businesses to adapt and overcome. And I think that is the greatest gift we've been given. I think a lot of organizations now are doing things differently than the way they used to. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It was interesting, just one example, the Humane Society here in town. Now they can't adopt dogs. People can't come to the Humane Society. Well, they started posting photos of the dogs, and people then could interact with them. Then if they decided they want to meet them in person, they came up with a way to do that. And they've had 100% adoption rate for people who have been interested in these dogs. They would have never done that. They had to scramble to create this ability. And so I think right now, if your company isn't advancing, if your company isn't finding a different way to do things, if you're not developing a side gig, so to speak, you're wasting this time.
Very good thoughts and very good advice. And, you know, you're always, like I keep mentioning, so positive. Where other people see a problem, you see that as a challenge and an opportunity to rise up higher. So
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed your, you know, Facebook Lives, and you just have such a way to dig deep and get to the truth of the matter. So I appreciate you so much. I mean, you're always fun to be around. You and I have gone to so many fun events and traveled, and I'm just, you know, you're just one of my favorite people in life and in my agency, and you're a delight to work with. So thank you.
Well, you're wonderful, and I appreciate all you do. You have gotten me in places and given me the ability to speak to groups I never would have had the opportunity to do. So thank you. Keep up the good work. You're excellent.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I got you into an animal animal rescue.
That was fun.
It was fun. I went
Yeah.
through, and the neat thing is just your presence brought in so much attention for that wonderful organization. And so I appreciate you being willing to throw on a cowboy hat and put on boots and kiss a pig if you need to.
Hey, whatever it takes, if it brings attention to a great cause, I'm happy to do it.
I think it was a goat. It wasn't a
It was.
goat. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today, Sierra. I adore you, and you have a good rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Please join us next time. For more information on booking a keynote speaker or event MC, contact Mindy East at Barron Ridge Speakers Agency.